Congratulations! If you're watching this, then you've decided to write a novel. And if you're watching this in November, then you probably think you can do it in 1 month. Regardless of if you're partaking in NaNoWriMo or National Novel Writing Month, I would like to present some tips to help you with the writing process. Now, these are not tips about character, plot, or world building. If you'd like any of that advice, then let me know and we'll see what we can do. But this is about your approach to writing. I'm going to touch on 4 main areas: brainstorming, setting the mood, the actual writing part, and how to make sure it doesn't end in tears. First up is brainstorming, and my favorite way to brainstorm is to free write, which for me is to use this book to think out loud. I basically write down just a stream of consciousness exactly what I'm thinking. Let's say I have a character, Mary. Mary needs to get to the store. That's the next plot point. How does Mary get to the store? I don't know. So this is what I do. All right. How should Mary get to the store? Maybe she should walk. Wait, she can't walk. The store is way too far. Car? No, that won't work. She can't afford a car. Maybe she can have a bike. Where's she gonna get a bike from? Ooh, I know. Her friend Tony has a bike. Maybe Tony lent her a bike. You get the point. So now I have a solution. Now Mary has Tony's bike. She's going to the store, and not only do I have a solution for how she's getting to the store, but the story just got so much deeper. Why did Tony lend her the bike? How did he lend her the bike? When did he lend her the bike? I don't know. This is stuff that I will explore in other free writing sessions. One other point about the free writing, it's can get cumbersome, or at least there's a lot of words on every page. So the way I've organized it so that it's easy to go back and scan through it is to date each session and bullet point each point that I'm going through, and then after I have the writing session I go back and underline the epiphanies, so I don't need all the what should Mary do parts, but I have Tony lends Mary his bike underlined. As I have my epiphanies, I compile them, and my favorite way to do that is by using Evernote, which is a note-taking app. With Evernote, you have different notebooks, and you can have as many notes as you'd like in those notebooks. So I have a notebook labeled characters, where I have notes on certain characters. I have a notebook labeled chapters, and I have chapters and scenes in them. I have a notebook labeled miscellaneous, and I just have random notes about the world that I've created. If you use Evernote for other things, you can stack all these notebooks together that have to do with your novel and keep it organized like that. Next up, you have your notebook, you have your free writing, that's awesome, but you need an outline. Do you need an outline? Okay, there are people who outline and there are people who don't outline. I recommend outlining. My recommendation is to use a spreadsheet program. You have your chapters going downward and your subplots going across. You can have category setting for that chapter, what setting it is, what main characters are in that chapter. You can have more generic things like internal conflict, external conflict, or you can have more specific your particular subplots. For example, if you have a romantic relationship going, progressing through your novel, then you might want to have a heading called romantic relationship. And then in, chapter 2, they meet, and you can have that. And then, as the relationship progresses, you'll have that charted out. And I recommend printing out your outline so that you can see at a glance the progress of your various subplots and the novel as a whole. Next, let's discuss setting up the mood. This will help you get into the writing mode easier, get into your world and your characters' heads. You can do this by creating a playlist. Think about the emotional resonance of your novel from start to finish, really from start to climax to finish, and then find songs that make you feel those emotions. Now, I like listening to that when I'm free writing and brainstorming, but when it comes to actually writing, I prefer non-lyric songs, so that's usually classical music for me. Just something nice in the background that I can use as white noise, essentially. Number 2 in setting the mood is aromatherapy. You can light a lavender candle every time you write, and then every time you light the lavender candle, it'll trigger something in your brain and help you get into that writing zone quicker, better, more efficiently. It's not magic, but you can pretend it is. Another way to help you get into the world that you're creating, whether or not your world is fantasy, you're still creating a world. Yes, I recommend using Pinterest. You can have private Pinterest boards and you can divide them by characters, divide it by world, the setting, and just grab pictures off the web or take pictures from magazines and upload it and just seeing all those images can help spark ideas and help you get a better grip of the world that you'd like to make. Lastly, I recommend researching, reading books, watching movies, or YouTube clips that have to do with the era that you're writing in, the genre that you're writing in, just to steep yourself in that mindset. And then when you sit down to write, you can, I feel that you can tap into it much better. All right, now we get to number 3, the actual writing part. We're not going to be discussing actual writing, but the approach to writing. I read a book by Aviator Zerubbabel called The Clockwork Muse. Highly recommend. Great read. But besides for that, he says that you should create a writing schedule, and how to do that. Not by plotting out when you're free, but by blocking out all the time that you're definitely not free. So, you're in school or at work from 9 to 5 or whatever schedule you have. So what are the open slots in your weekly schedule? And then looking at that, which of those slots can you dedicate to writing? And then you keep to it. Now, if you can't keep to it because you were too ambitious and you gave yourself too many slots to writing, then by all means step back a little bit and take it easier. Once you have it pretty much ironed out, stick to it. Keep track of your writing progress. So each day after your writing session, write down how long you were writing for and how many words you put in. 500, 1,000, 2,000, whatever you have. That way you are both motivated to write, to sit down and write because you want to put down those numbers, and also makes you feel good afterward. Look at what you did. It's a great accomplishment. Lastly, with regard to writing, keep in mind that you're writing multiple drafts. When you sit down to do the first draft, it is the first draft. You should label it rough draft, first draft, whatever you want to label it. Make sure you know that you are just putting all the words on paper that have to do with your plot, hopefully in sequential order. Doesn't have to be. You can actually, I'll just touch on this for a minute, you can actually write out of order, especially if you have an outline. If you feel inspired to write a certain scene, go ahead and write that. Don't feel restricted to write in order. Going back to what I was saying, though, you should not feel compelled to find the exact right word or anything. Like, just write notes to yourself if you need, if you think you're going to forget, and just move on. The goal in the first draft is just to move forward. With the second draft, you can decide to cut scenes or add scenes, change characters, whatever you want to do. In the third draft, you get more particular and fine-tune it as you go along. But the point is to have the end goal in mind, and you're in it for the long haul and all other kind of cliches. Don't freak out about perfection in the first draft, or else you're never going to finish. Bear in mind that this is not the manuscript that you are handing into a publisher. Lastly, what do I mean when I say that it shouldn't end in tears? Well, imagine that you were writing for months or years, which rhymes with tears, and your computer gets a virus, or your thumb drive gets stolen, and you don't have your manuscript anymore because you didn't back it up. So what do I mean by not ending in tears is I mean back up your stuff, and I mean everything. Remember the notes that I mentioned earlier? The Evernote notes? Well, you have to make sure, you don't have to, but it's highly recommended that you make sure that the database is backed up on an external server, and in addition to that, back it up to another note-taking program, for instance, OneNote. You can even sync them up. You can export it if you already have Evernote, like a whole bunch of notes. You can export it in one fell swoop to OneNote, and then you can use something like if this then that, and that way you can make a recipe. Google it. You can make a recipe, and you can say, if I make a new note in this notebook, then copy it into this notebook. The only downside I found is that if you edit a note that you made already, it doesn't update that note in OneNote. If you have another solution, let me know, because I would be so happy to hear that. And of course, update your manuscript. Update it on a cloud, update it on a hard drive, update it on a thumb drive, update it constantly. Upload it to your email server every time that you write. Just back up, because if not, you're screwed. I think we covered a lot of ground. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. Can't promise I have the answers, but I sure will try. To my subscribers, this might help explain why I don't upload videos as often as you might like. To my non-subscribers, subscribe. It's really fun. Seriously, subscribe. Comment, share, like the video, pass it around, and have fun writing.